In the last 24 hours, I had artificial intelligence, okay, write 297,000 words for my business. And the single most valuable thing that it produced all day was 1,500 words of code that told me I was wrong. I'm going to go ahead and talk to you a little bit more about this. And I want to show you what this actually looks like because I think that the numbers can feel somewhat meaningless unless you are able to understand and kind of see what this really looks like in true form. Uh, I had this folder as an example, 72 files. The first one has what I call the timestamp of when I started this. Um, timestamp of, yeah, I think it was 1:38 in the morning on Wednesday. Again, that's because it started as I was staying up late to the next day. The last one has a timestamp of 1:41 in the morning on Thursday. So it was me in and out of this, working on other things that I have going on in my day, in and out of AI, working on processes with clients, myself, some of my team members. And here's the thing, 7 pages of website codes. You think about this, 6 different cold emails, 2 sequences that I'm looking at putting on LinkedIn, uh, what I call a 10 file kit of what I'm calling a writer, and then 5 finished articles that came out as part of that. A voice file also that we were wanting to use or I was wanting to have used, but it stopped sounding. I would say I had a problem that I wanted to put together. So I wanted it to stop sounding like a machine. You might have had that kind of a problem. And at the end, a little script, 1,500 words of code that actually checks all of the rest of this. Now, here's the part that I actually wanted to talk about. And this is a little bit of an insight that hopefully you can maybe gain from part of your experience is that I've been using these tools for months. And for months, I keep getting, if you think about this, the same type of a complaint back from myself. And it's just how I've been feeling. Sounds like a robot. And I've been trying to work through this. And I have my own voice files. I have other types of files. I had other types of things. I've fed things that I feel like are amazingly well written. But I still feel like a lot of what I get back is I call it, and what you've heard is kind of the AI slop. And I wanted to be careful on how I say part of what this is next, because it's not that what I was doing or what you might be doing is wrong. And it's not that I figured out some kind of a little bit of a secret, just so you know. It's that I wasn't thinking, or that we might not have been taught that any of us should use a few things slightly different than we've been doing in the past. Because there's obviously no manual. The part of what this is, we're just figuring things out. So hopefully you're going to figure some of this out with me as well. And of yesterday, I'm going to say I found out 5 things. Some of them you could say cost me money before they taught me anything. I want you to think about this a little bit for yourself as well. So here's what I'm wanting to go do with you here. Okay, 5 things. One is what actually, okay, got cheap in part of this process, and it's not what you think. Number two is why 3 made up business owners beat 5 experts. Think about that one. Three is one sentence that explains why your AI keeps on making the same mistake over and over. The fourth thing I want to talk about are the 2 second habits that caught a mistake. Okay, that 3 separate days of work, I could have potentially just walked right past that. And five, I want to talk about the one job that it could not do, which is the job that you're going to get paid in essence for from here on out. And that's kind of a simple thing, but I want you to think about that. By the way, none of this is about writing faster. Writing faster is the boring part. I want you to walk out of here in your mind with a little bit more uh, of getting a little bit more of your time back, a little bit more of your week back, a way to find more money in the things that you are already doing, in the businesses that you already own. And honestly, just a little bit more, get a little bit of a head start on everybody else who's trying to still figure these things out. And what we're going to do is we're going to hopefully still doing so by typing what I'm going to say is just a simple question, okay, into one of the chat boxes. So I want you to go grab a pen if you want to come along and take some notes as we do this. And here's the next thing is AI did not make me faster. It didn't make me a faster writer. In essence, it just really, the term I like to use is that it just almost made things, in essence, more free for me to change my mind. And that's one of the big challenges is that in the past, I would put time and limits on the amount of effort it's going to take. And so the key thing now is that AI is freeing up your time in order to make changes with a lot less effort and, in essence, almost free. So on Wednesday, I had one of the biggest changes from an idea perspective that I've had in a long time for my business. And I've always tried to explain, to a brand owner where the money is hiding in their company is what I like to try to help them discuss. And for weeks, it's been built around what I call 5 conversations that you kind of have to go have with yourself. If you think about this, you as a business owner. And the key thing that I've been doing is looking at what that's needed to be. And I haven't felt that it's been right. And on Wednesday, I decided that it just felt like it was too long, didn't feel like it was on point as much as it needed to be. And it's not really 5 conversations. Okay. It was actually what I refer to now is 5 piles of money sitting in 5 different spots. And to me, the key thing was is that you can go count this. So one of the big things that I've changed is in a business in the world of systems and processes, which we need. A lot of business owners right now, if you're a consumer goods brand or if you're a person who makes and sell physical products, as an example, which is one of the things that I specialize in, are those types of brands. What you're going to find out is that there's always a need, I like to say, for more cash in your business. And one of the biggest obstacles that most people find is they always think it's the more component. Even if it's yourself, it's more of your time, it's more of your effort, it's more people, it's more sales, it's more products, etc. And what I've realized is a lot of the businesses, a lot of you as owners and entrepreneurs, you're putting tremendous time into all of these things. And there's just really untapped money that sits within the ecosystem of what you already do. So therefore, this idea I had on Wednesday was that the conversations weren't looking at these 5 separate things. It was these 5 piles of money. In essence, there's these 5 simple things that we can take a look at where money already exists in the business. And in these 5 different spots, we can go identify very easily how we can just put a few simple things in place that you already got, not any more time, not any more ads, not any more people, not any more systems in order to extract that money. Or in essence, I like to say the unclaimed money that sits in your bank account. Because at the end of the day, a bigger year does not mean always a bigger bank balance. And the goal is how do we get a bigger bank balance as we get a bigger year? And often that's just doing a better job at capturing the visibility, capturing the attention that you have in a way that can be automatically pulling those things out of the business or from the customers that are coming in front of you. So I thought, again, that is a much better idea. I thought it felt a lot more simpler, and part of what this was. And so now, if you think about this, okay, now in the old world of where we were, what would have this have cost me to change, in essence, part of a fairly large ecosystem that I was working inside of? Website, if you think about this, says the old things. Emails in the sequences say the old things. The call scripts say the old things. Your LinkedIn messages say the old things. All your social posts still say that same thing. So every single one of those, if you think about this, has to be rewritten and or the whole thing kind of still contradicts itself. And so that's kind of this big aha. So what ends up happening, if you think about this in where we were in the old world, is you're like, it's great. I just don't know when and how I'm going to be able to get to this. And so you have this great and this better idea. And so you end up just sitting on it and you end up telling yourself that you're going to get to this next week, next month, next quarter. And here's the thing, if you think about this, it's not laziness. It's not because you're not already spending every waking hour of your day working on your business, working in your business, working with the people in your business, working with your clients and your customers. It's that, somebody else doing, honestly, if you were going to go try to charge or have somebody else do this, there's a cost to all this. And so we tend to kind of put this off. And the other biggest thing is how do we get what is your ideas and your thoughts out of your head to somebody? So it's not only a cost, it's a time and an effort and all the other pieces that kind of pull on you at that time. So the idea, in essence, wasn't the expensive part. The ideas are the easy part. And be careful because sometimes too many ideas and too many scrolls are the distractions as well. Okay. The idea, in essence, the ideas are free. But the rewrite or how and the effort and the time was going to be the not part that was so free. So by the same thing. So by what I want to say, 70. So again, this was by 7:20 in the evening, that same evening, all 7 pages of the site I had, and I was able to rework and rebuild on the new idea. The 6 emails were rebuilt. LinkedIn sequences, LinkedIn strategies, my thoughts were rebuilt. Blogs and ideas surrounding that were also rebuilt. The call script, what I want to call part of the objection sheet, the 1-page offer. And in fact, the thing that's amazing today is even a better way of having your customers and your clients engaged to find out more or to understand the value of something to you. Like I call them micro apps, are all built in same. It's part of the same process, and including my entire social kit. So if you think about this, starting early in the morning, being off and on Wednesday. And by the time I got through this at 7 p.m. on that night, again, with other things happening during the day, those things had all been switched. So again, so if you think about this, it was 1:12 in the morning on the next day, on Thursday morning that I was staying up late finishing. Everything had been finished. I ended up not building 112 email series that I didn't get rebuilt because it was built on what I like to call some older ideas. And it was too deep for me to decide to go back and patch those. And if I did, it would have just felt wrong and broken anyway. So I ended up deciding to kill that one and put it on hold and getting back to that one item a little bit later. So that's kind of one of those key things. If you think about this, that it's opening up is this freedom that you now have. And if you think about it, you only you don't have to necessarily spend a month of your time or throw a month of time or effort or your team's time and effort away and hoping that something's going to work the way that you want. You think about that, that becomes a lot less expensive. And so the question is not, okay, what can AI write for you? The question is, what have you been putting off because the rewrite was too expensive or it felt too daunting or it felt too big because that price just today has gone to almost nothing and very, very little effort as part of what that is. So just think about that again. If you've been thinking or you've been wanting or you've been holding off, there now is an opportunity to take the advantage of AI and do things in much, much less time than you've ever thought possible in the past in order to move you potentially faster and more forward. Some of the other fun things is looking at doing this from what is a testing and some other things. Now, we're going to get into the meat of part of what this is. Okay. Because in fact, I've already covered, and I guess I should have been a little bit more thorough in telling you the few different things that we're going through. I talked about the 5 different areas that I wanted to cover. The first one that I was going to be looking at, again, coming back to this, the first lesson was that things got cheaper with AI again. And it wasn't that I got to be a better writer. The second thing that I covered that I just kind of got through, well, um, I guess I'm on number 2 now. So thanks for being with me here. I'm trying to work through some of my notes that I put together. And so I guess we're now looking at lesson number 2. So we got the first one out of the way. Lesson 2, and this is a really big one for me that I want you to follow along with. And a lot of people don't know this. Whenever I talk and introduce businesses that I work with as to AI, and really quick as a note, I have this saying that you're not going to really find anywhere. It's something that I would love to know if you would like me to do a few more bits on. I have a, a number sequence, or what I like to say, a formula. And it's U to the X times your business to the Y equals exponential output. And that all gets wrapped with AI, meaning you multiplied and the things that you learn to become better at and the things that are you're naturally good at. When you multiply those, you are able and have more capability as a person. Your skills, your talents, and your things continue to push you forward. The other one is your business can be multiplied, okay, in several different ways as well. And when you work on you and you work on your team members, and then you work on your business and you bring those two things together, we end up not with just a doubling, but we end up with a multiplication. It's like uh, y to the 3 or your business to the cubed kind of a component. And what I like to say is this all gets wrapped in AI, and AI is one of these compounding components that is a key multiplier in both of those things that help enhance who we are, help enhance what our business can do. And we tie those two things together. I like to say it creates exponential output. Okay. So that's a little bit of a distraction, but let me come back to part of what this is. Because when we help businesses work on a couple key pieces that they're doing to capture this kind of unrecognized revenue in their business, we like to use AI as an accelerant. AI is not always the solution itself, but it's an accelerant that works and partners perfectly with people and perfectly with the systems in order to get more out of those with less time and with less effort, and it makes things easy. So what you're going to hear next is I'm going to talk about this, okay? Because what I did is I asked AI to go give me 5 experts. I often like to call these a board of director. So okay, I've asked AI to go give me 5 experts. Then I asked it to give me a set of key customers based on who my ICP is or my ideal client profile is. And there's a few variations to that. Okay, those customers were right, and the experts often, you could say, were wrong, and it wasn't often always that close. So this is an interesting thing to think about again. Getting AI experts and taking your personas and the voice of your customers and being able to utilize those two together to help you accelerate part of your process in this development. So that's one of the key things that I want to talk about in this next one. And here's what I did. And you can go do this today as well, because again, it's free with a lot of the tools that you get from AI and anything you can access. It's just knowing and understanding this. I guess what I wanted to say here is I call them a board of experts. And often, if you can think about this in a brand or a business, if you have others around you that are smarter and better than you are, then they are able to be more capable and ask better questions about the solutions and the processes that you're wanting to do and where you're wanting to go. So, formulating a board of experts is what I like to bring to the table from an AI perspective. And these can be formulated and based on legitimately real people. Often I think about this as, and sometimes I pull this, I call them level 10. Like, what's a level 10 expert? And I would say, you can think about Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies. You can think about in the world of marketing, who are some of the old school people like David Ogilvy's of the world. If you want some direct marketing, like the Dan Kennedys, if you want people that understand really great storytelling and tied in with marketing, you can think about like the Seth Godins of the world. And so there's a lot of these people that you can bring to the table that you can have sit across from you and assist you in the development of these items, and having AI fill in those spots the same way you can have it fill in you, and the same way you can have it fill in your customers. So I had a decision to make, okay, about what to put in front, in essence, of my business, and from these experts' perspective. And what is the first thing that somebody, in essence, gets from me? So I asked the five different experts, okay, what their points of view would be on this. And if you think about this, it's kind of like the positioning person, right? And if you think about this, you can think about a positioning. So what is this, and how do we position this? What do we maybe do from this from a pricing perspective, and that kind of a thing. Each one of them, okay, built me a full recommendation. Pretty good work. I would consider it smart work when you read from it. The problem is if it sounds good to me, it might not be good to my clients, but it sounds good, right? Then here's the key thing. I did one more step. Okay. I took those five recommendations and then I handed those to, in essence, my three business owners. Terry, if you think about this, was I'm literally one of my ICPs is called Terry, who does about 400 and about $50,000 a year in puzzles, is who this person was as a manufacturer of goods. Angela, okay, who does about 1.6 million in ceramics and sells to 150 different shops that her ceramics get sold through. The other person, or my third person, was Marcus, who imports and does about 4.2 million through 300 dealers themselves, along with some direct to consumer sales. And so I had them as part of my panel in order to now vet out what these five recommendations are. Now, I have to tell you something about Terry and Angela and Marcus, okay? They're not real people, like I mentioned. Okay. They're built out of what I want to call like 95 sources of real owners, and some of the actual conversations and the talking and the things that they've gone through. And in essence, in their own world, in their own words. And I've assembled them into part of these people who could, in essence, read a page or read a document, and then they can react to it. So if you think about this in your own business, I always highly, side note, pro tip, I highly recommend that you record all of the conversations that you have with all of your customers for several reasons. The first and the most important, I'll just kind of give you a couple others here, is that it lets you hear everything that they have in literally their own voice, in their own words, what they're doing, the questions, what they're doing as responses, what they want, what they don't like, and everything that you then do as an engagement with them that bring those two things together. And the reason this is so powerful is that you can start to create these entire banks of conversations and your customers' dialogues that becomes what I call the voice of your customer, which is one of the most powerful things that any business can own, because a customer loves to buy what they want to buy, not what you want to sell to them. And if we can sell to them in the way they want their words, and the way they see it, and the way they want it, you've got it nailed. Okay, so there's these. I like to say, another side note, if you want, I have like what I call three tiers of the customer's voices that you can go use to do things digitally, in groups and in persons. Let me know. Comment group if you want me to go do a little bit more and help you guys understand what I call this three-phase voice of the customer strategy. But coming back to it, again, I'm a little bit off here. As part of this pro tip, you can also use it great for coaching yourself, for coaching your employees, understanding and capturing things. And then obviously you can turn on your AI support people once it gets to know you and your brand and your companies, and it gets to know your customers and your resources. Literally, AI will be able to do a better job here probably in the next 6 months to a year. And you will more likely enjoy talking to that than you will a person, because they're going to have all the context, all the knowledge. They're going to get you exactly what you want to have. So just as a note, we're going to come back. Okay. So going back to this again. So all of these three avatars, right? So they're not the people. But in their own words, I could have them now assembled into a group and I could have them react to the pieces. And so, in short, in essence, they tore the experts apart because they're the reality of who you sell to and they're the reality of who I sell to. So the experts had five things that they had built for me. Okay. And the owners, in essence, they killed four out of the five of them. One of them they killed because Terry pointed out that and this is what Terry said, is that a man is not going to print out the form and fill it in with a pen. Okay. By the way, which is true. None of us want to print something out ever and fill it out with a pen. So I know that's true. You know that's true. When I watch people again, not just go do that. And again, not one of the five experts um, said really a word about it outside of that just being identified. Angela, here's another one from her. She said she read the pages where I very clearly explained why there was, in essence, no price on what we were offering. And she simply said, a page with no number reads as a number that I'm not sure I'm going to like, which is an interesting comment because often when you're with a business, uh, you might want to put a number and you might not because that either qualifies or disqualifies people. Again, there's pros and cons to both of what that is. And then Angela, again, did the thing that made the whole exercise worth it. And she described something, okay, she wants that was not, in essence, on anybody's list. Now, think about that. If you have your customers and you're trying to work through some processes and you can have them be part of this panel of experts and provide some insights, that's amazingly powerful. What she wanted is a simple sheet showing which of her, in essence, accounts ordered this year, which ones of them were slowing down, and in essence, which one of those stops. And if you think about this, Angela was selling through different wholesale shops, and a lot of businesses don't always go back or they're not always tracking, in essence, top 10 this month, last month. What does this look like over last year? And so she just wanted a sheet, in essence, that would help them on her understand that category. And when we work with businesses, again, side note is we like to really look at their key full set of who and how they sell through direct to consumer. What does that look like with the products that they're manufacturing and selling? What does that look like with what I call the retailers, the groups that buy at wholesale at 50% off? And I also like to look at what I call the distributors, which are groups that sell to these wholesale people. And then there is a fourth category that I call the international groups. In between here, some people are going to throw Amazon. I don't like to put Amazon in this mix. Amazon, it's its own complete beast that needs to be treated completely independent. Even though it really sits in a direct to consumer side, in essence, there's a lot of money. It's really fits into my math equations. If you look at it from a profitability, really more like a wholesale account or the dealers that resell. But again, she just wanted a list from herself, even though she was doing direct to consumers. She was curious to know the success rate of what her dealer business was looking like. And so, again, an interesting thing that hadn't come up anywhere else as part of what that sheet was. And so, again, coming back to this, she wanted to understand and know if she could understand and have the sheet that would allow those things to be put together that could help her understand the value of those clients. In essence, she was like, "Hey, I'd pay $80,000 for that all day." Not sure if you'd pay $80,000. Not sure if I'd pay $80,000, but depending on the size of your business, being able to look at a couple of these key things on understanding where the revenue can be um, that's unclaimed in your business, where you could find more to claim that is a pretty powerful thing. And depending on the size of your business, it can be worth 100, it can be worth 1,000, 10,000, 50,000, and obviously more than that, depending on the size of the scope. My last business venture, as a note on this, we ended up with about 35% of the business sitting in that particular category. So we were about a $30 million business, about 10 million of that sat into that one. So to understand the impact and what we would do in order to get more money from that channel, it's pretty darn important. So I wrote down a rule and I'm going to keep it. Okay. When an expert and a customer disagree, the customer wins. And AI will happily play both of them for you in the same afternoon. And you think about this, they'll do it for free. So let me just say that again. I'm writing down the rule. And what I'm going to do is I'm wanting to make sure I apply this as I move forward is when an expert and a customer disagree, the customer is going to win because it comes from the voice of my customer and it doesn't come from a bunch of hujamawabs who sit on a board. Even though we want to hear them, that does not mean that that is always the real world and where the rubber meets the road. And that is something that you can do on your own and put together as an easy thing for you to use as reference. So you think about this. This happened, by the way, and came back 13 different times in one session where the owners overruled the experts. 13. Okay. And every one of those 13 is a thing that I probably would have never have found out today. And I probably would have found out a month down the road on a real call, after dealing with a real person, and or after I had spent time building the wrong thing. And so there's a tremendous amount of power in what this can bring and do for you. The part is, I want you to go ahead and do the same thing for you. Okay. Everybody is using these tools to help produce part of what you're looking to do. And almost none of them, and none of you are out there are doing part of this, or you've never been told that this is an availability on what you can do. And it really costs us the same thing, which is pretty much nothing in order to put that in place. So that's the last area I want to talk about. So I want to talk about lesson three. Okay. And what this one is if you think about this 3 days in a row, okay, I read what the machine gave me and and it said the same thing. And I was saying the same thing about this. This doesn't sound like me. And 3 days in a row, I explained why, helped write it down, and 3 days in a row came back sounding exactly the same. And I don't know if you've experienced this before. So think about this 3 days in a row, what I was reading and what the machine was giving me, it felt like the same thing. And I continued to fix it, and it would come back 3 days in a row with the same piece. Now, here's the thing I want you to take from this. It's not that the system wasn't getting better or smarter. Okay. So on Wednesday, I finally went and kind of looked at why this was happening. The system that I had set and put into part of the instructions is where the fault lied. And in line 22 of those instructions, it says, before you write a single line, go ahead and read the voice of Nathan's folder and pass everything through it. That's literally what I put together, is that it was supposed to go read folder that had my voice details in it. Okay. Guess what? That folder never transferred over as part of this piece. And so it actually didn't exist. And in essence, it never existed because it was built new. Even though I have my voice sitting over here, I started working this new project. So not once did any of those days did it put anything through it. And since I set the whole thing up, every single time it ran, it went looking for the folder, found nothing, kept on going because it doesn't know and didn't have a way to stop it. And some of you that are smart with the eye, you might be like, hey, if you can't find something, tell me about that. Often I find that it really can, and it doesn't know where it's looking and that it's hallucinating, but that's fine. All right, no error. Okay, no warning was coming up. No red text gets thrown across your stuff. It just quietly kind of wrote from whatever it thought was going to be the best thing, and it was relying on those. And then it would hand it to me, and then I would felt like I just like this didn't feel really what it should have been. And it thought it was confident. It thought it knew what it was doing. So now I want you to think about this for just a minute. Sit on this, because I don't think if you want to understand this, that this story really is about AI. Okay, it's not. You have a report that runs every Monday. If you think about this, the question I want to know is, do you know, in fact, that it's actually pulling from the right place? Have you got an automated email that actually goes out when somebody buys in your own business? Think about this. This is more about you right now than it is with AI in my story. What might you have that you currently believe that is automated, that you believe something should be happening, or maybe you haven't put something in place where something should be happening? Do you know, okay, if things are going out? And by the way, we just put a new rule in place with another brand that I'm working with, where every single first day of the month, those whole things go through and get looked at. Some businesses put this in place every single week to make sure that we're not losing out on some of the existing revenue that comes through the businesses because something like that breaks. And what we think is automated, by the way, most businesses don't have all these things automated, which you really should do, which is what we help businesses do. But coming back to that, that's an important part to do. Okay. So if you have a report that's going out, do you know, in fact, that it's actually pulling from the right numbers, from the right place, whether it's the automated or not? And you know when it's going out, are you finding that? Is it happening on all the forms that you have on all your websites? And when was the last time that somebody potentially filled something out? And if you are knowing that you're actually getting the message. So that's more of a cue for you to potentially take a look at what this is, because it's one of the lessons that I've learned from part of the stint that I went through, is even though I thought things were where they should have been, they weren't. And it continued to feel like I was repeatedly trying to solve a problem that just didn't need to be solved. And by the way, this can be a very expensive kind of being wrong problem. So take a look at that and get to understand what that is. Right. So here's the question I now ask before I blame the tool. Is the thing actually reading what I think it's reading? 9 times out of 10, the machine isn't, if you think about this, being stupid. Okay. It's being obedient, and it's reading what I like to call an empty file, or it's going past it because it doesn't have an option or know that what it's missing is missing, and it's going to continue with whatever it thinks is the right thing. The folder exists. The 7 files are in it. Now, if you think about this with once I put this together, now he talks and builds the short pieces in my voice. Okay. He now talks in the long pieces in my voice. The words, again, they use now are my words. The 6 passages that we've already worked on can now be reworked the right way. And now I have a bank of the things that I'm actually saying that I want it to help mimic, and it sounds more like me out loud. And it also has a log now of everything that we've tried in the past, and now it's not going to get going to get wrong. And so the very next thing that I wrote after it went through and read some of this was way better and way more on point once I understood why there was this disconnect in the system, and it fixed it. So you think about this same tool, same day, the same me at the end of the day. Nothing else was wrong. We just simply put a few things in place, and we now had something significantly better, which is also available for you to do in your business. And you can also do this with AI, but in your business, I want you to think about that too. So that's the key thing I want you to walk away on the last one. All right. Lesson 4, what I want you to think about on this one is that I had, in essence, written the rules down. Okay. I had read the rules, and in essence, I had broken my own rules twice in the same day in writing, and I didn't catch either one of them. Now, what does that mean? And let me explain that to you. So here's what happened next. Okay. And this one, a little bit embarrassing. I got to be honest with you. I have a list of words, and I do not necessarily always use a set of rules about how things get said. Um, but I want to make sure that there's beginning to be a better process in place. And so it's written down. Okay. It's not a secret from anybody, including myself. It's there. But on Wednesday, 2 files that I had worked through and I felt were ready to be done, it felt like they were broken. When I read them, again, I was reading them carefully. I thought that I was going to catch this, and I didn't. So instead of writing down the rules a third time, what I did, if you think about this, because I'm talking about and I'm trying to say something, I'm talking about and I'm writing down, I'm trying to say something. And at the end of the day, I'm not catching a few things. And so think about what you can do on this. What I did is I decided to say, hey, why don't I have AI build a little system for me, like a little program, 1,500 word of code. It takes about 2 seconds, by the way, to run, and it doesn't have an opinion. Think about this because it's AI about anything. It just goes ahead and it can go through its process and count. And so, what I wanted to do is just take a look on how many, in essence, I call them banned words. How many words do I not want to have said? How many old, in essence, prices that are not prices anymore? How many places where are we using 2 different words for the same thing? How many, in essence, contractions are we using that are human in the way we use our shortened word, like it's? Because if I'm writing a short email and there aren't any of those inside of there, then it's actually not my kind of a style. It's the style of a robot. And so I ran this the first time on a file, okay, 3 different times in a sessions that I've already gone over. And I found that I was actually using phrases 5 different places for the same numbers in different ways, different lines. In essence, I was sitting on what I call these 3 lines of approving these 5 piles from where the money was in 2 different ways. And almost, I was using an almost the same words and almost the same way on the same pages, but I just because I thought they were looking good and they were sounding great, but it was able to find these literally in 2 seconds to help bring everything back into alignment. So if you think about this, when I ran it again later that night, I was able to find, in essence, these places where they were not good, and not just only in 2 spots, and significantly more than that. And the other ones that I found, if you think about them, like one in the email file, one of these was 30,000 characters long. It was able to find a lot more of these. And if you were thinking about when I talk about my words and how my words were, when it went through another one in another large file, it didn't find anything that should have been there. So in essence, it found that there were things that were missing. So not that it was just missing one, it was missing several things, which is most of the reason why a lot of the things that we were doing were not reading like myself. And so I think it was really important to have a simple system that you can use that lets AI check part of what you want and part of your rules and part of your behaviors. And then you can go through and make sure that those things are included in your communications in the way that you would want, both eliminating and both including those pieces that sound and are you and are on brand as well. And the key thing here too is that it's important that you're taking a look on your own. Okay. You can't just hope and think that it will always find everything you're wanting. And if you want to know if something is right, then you're going to need something like this that you're going to put together so that it's going to return more details um, without you thinking, without you getting caught up in how you feel about it. You're going to want an unbiased opinion with AI to assist you with that to make sure that it's going to catch the things that normally you can't find on your own. Because once we start saying things 3 to 5 times, everything looks the same, and our own words or our own flattery might catch us up, and it might not work the way that we want as well. So I would just go ahead and say, just be careful on this, on anything that you're watching, you're trying to look through on your own. Um, is that you can't just always audit your own things with your own eyes in the way you can if you have an assistant. And this is why, if you think about this from a book perspective, like people have proofreaders and there are professionals that do this, you can have AI help you and be a partner in the same process so that your eye is in essence sliding over things that it shouldn't slide over, and you're going to be catching the things you need to do. So anything that you wanted and should be catching is an important thing that you're going to do with them. Okay, my last lesson here, lesson 5. If you think about this, I want you to listen to this number here: 297,000 words. Okay. And the most valuable thing that happened all day was 10 minutes of me talking with nobody actually writing anything down. Now, what does that mean? Okay, I want to be honest with you, okay, about the other side of this. Every single thing that you've ever seen on this video, okay, most all of them, they needed me. Not in a nice way necessarily, but in a real way. Okay. One page about pricing got corrected 4 separate times in one day, and all 4 corrections were mine. If you think about this, it anchored it to the wrong number because that's what it was. So I told it the right one. Okay. It wrote a line saying that this is not a discount. And I read through it and I said, this isn't true. It is actually a discount. Just go ahead and say that. And then it used a word that nobody else in my world uses. And I was thinking, like, why did you say that? Who says that? Nobody says that. And so if you think about this process that I was doing as I was reading and walking through this, okay, there's a whole table that I have in my folder now of lines that I wrote, and what it said back, or what it said, I wanted to go ahead and fix those. So what I started doing is I started working with AI on this one as far as what I want it to say and what it was saying, and building this reference doc that would continue to help it become more and more fine tuned. So this whole table in this folder now is full of lines, okay, that are what it wrote and what I said back instead of what it wrote. Think about this. So, one term, and I'm going to go through these so you can kind of understand what this is like. So it wrote money that never landed. And I said, if you think about this, who in the heck, what is money that landed? What does that mean? And so I said, who says landed? And I said, say money, okay, you never went and asked for. And so I did this several different times with several things. So then I wrote down, um, just give me a minute. I want to look at some of my notes to make sure I read some of these correctly. Oh yeah, this is a funny one. It wrote that it was all already in the building, and I was saying, "What do you mean in the building?" Okay. One of the businesses I ran doesn't have a building. So when we're talking about this and it's continuing to reference, "Oh, the money's already in the building." I'm thinking, "What the heck are you, is this a bank conversation? Is this a bank question?" And at the end of the day, I was like, it's not in the building, so we need to rework this. It would be in the business. And so I just really want you to think about, there's a way that you can use. And so I had it spitting it out, and I'm talking to it now saying, here's what you're saying. Let's build a document and add that we don't want you to say this. We want you to use words like this. Instead of saying this one, I want you to use words like the other word, this landed. I'm like, what do you mean this landed? Or this, they were able to take it home. Or one big one here most recently I was thinking about is I wanted to use the word kind of like funding. And because a lot of entrepreneurs out there, if you're thinking about this again as a person who makes and sells physical goods as a consumer goods brand, you're trying to make sure you have money for part of what you're doing next. And so my mind was thinking about like funding, and that doesn't really work. And then the simplified word is so that you could pay for the things you want. So as an example, you can capture these kind of words so that it doesn't become AI ninth or 12th grade language. You can keep it simplified in human/fifth grade language that makes it easier for everybody to read. And if you, now kind of we kind of as we conclude part of what this is, and then Wednesday night, I was doing something a little bit different, so I stopped typing. And part of again what I was doing is I was just audibly talking through this, and you can get a couple apps that let you just talk. Pronote is, by the way, you can speak 3 to 5 times faster than you can type. And so if you really want to increase your productivity, especially while working with AI, being able just to talk directly into your system is significantly faster. even making fixes and changes is because you can read what was output and you can literally read the sentence. Hey, on this sentence, dot, 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 in this, this is what this is saying. I don't quite understand what you're trying to do with my words and my language. I feel like it should sound something like this. By the way, update the document on the side to make sure that we continue to avoid this as we move forward. So, what I started doing is I started describing out loud what I wanted the email to say. Okay, rambled a little bit, and helped correct part of what this was in the middle of what it was. And so was able to list out the four things that I wanted to have it fixed. And at the end of the day, it was able to put those all together in part of an outside list. And then it was able to fix my emails and it was able to build a better conversation for me to move on next to this. So the transcript is now one of the best things that we have in the whole system because as I've gone through this, it's been able to continue to add to the voices and some of the other things that I've had. If you think about this, we have my clients and the brains. Those things come together along with who you are and what you're doing in order to make a significantly more impactful conversation. Because it all turns out, if you think about this, um, give me just a minute here. Let me look at what's next that I wanted to share. Oh, here's one of the other things that you'll note that you can capture when you do this is you might have some of the context of what you think you're trying to include or finish with part of your document or what the email is or what the letter is or what the response is or what your website's going to be. But when you often have a chance to just talk through things in your own words, you're going to find that sometimes you can find some of the best golden nuggets. And I say this because one of the things that I didn't realize that I used to say is I would say, as an example in quotes, if this isn't for you, you can go ahead and ignore this. Although there might be something in here that you could pass along to a friend. And I wasn't thinking and realized that that was part of my normal conversation that I had when I was just talking as though I was working and connecting with another person. And in essence, so nobody would have been able to write that for me because that was part of what I was doing in the moment as I was rescripting a few things and then still talking to AI as it was recording and updating part of those pieces. And that's a really important thing to think about that you can use as a combination of who you are and what you would like to say or how you would like that to sound as you're also critiquing part of what you're seeing on your screen again as you're verbally going through and doing that. You'll bring in more insights and some of those golden pieces that really make it part of who you are. And so, again, where I've ended up is the writing, if you think about this, is no longer the bigger job. Okay. The judgment of what you're going to be doing is going to become more important to your part of this. And your judgment was going to show up actually after you've had a chance to work more through this process and to make it more real as you read through it. So, what this means is that the most valuable 10 minutes of your week might actually be you talking through to your phone referencing part of what that is on how your business actually works or actually what you want to have done as part of this piece as an update. A lot of people might go, oh, yeah, I talk into my phone all the time or I talk to AI. And this is a little bit different. This isn't just talking to AI. This is taking what you have in front of you and what part of that conversation has been and going back and fine tuning some of those key pieces in your voice so that it is now connecting what AI thought it was going to do what you now are helping it understand that is a difference and those two things coming down for a better process and a better output later on. And the good thing for somebody like you and me is because the one thing, a competitor can't download is the experience that you have or is the experience that I have. For example, my last 20 plus years of knowing what a customer means when they go quiet. And so you can now take part of that unique experience and expertises that you have and talk that into your system that allows it to become more impactful and copy part of what you're doing. So let me put the five things back kind of into your mind and back into something that you could hold on to. Number one is we, in essence, got cheap in the way we can go ahead and facilitate things. We didn't necessarily get better in writing. We were just able to do things with less effort and less time. And so changing your mind is the easy and the simple process. And now putting that into place is going to be even easier if you understand how AI can do that with you. So go find a good idea that you've been sitting on because you've not been quite so sure how you wanted to rewrite that, or it was going to be too big of a project because now it's not. Okay. Number two is before you think about this, before you build, uh, get told no. Before you get halfway down the road on what you're going to do, have it put in front of your customers, not just your consultants, and take both of those. If you think about this, my customers killed four out of the five things that I thought I was going to potentially do, that I was going to build. And they helped hand me one of the key, most critical things that I didn't consider before I had started the conversation. Number three is when it keeps making the same mistake, go check whether it's reading what I like to call an empty file. Is it really doing the things that it should be doing? And I challenge you to go check out to see if you might have a few things in your business that are working the way that you actually felt like they should be working. That's a critical one. Okay, 9 out of 10 times, it's that it's doing exactly what it thought it should be doing, and your systems are doing what they thought they should be doing. And it's not because they not smart. It's because the file that it was trying to reference was blank or wrong or was turned off. Okay. Number four is building something that counts instead of something that, in essence, that just judges. In essence, 2 seconds. If you think about this, in 3 days of some conversation that I had, completely could change the process that you have as an outcome. So be careful of what and how you're reading through things, because often what you're reading is not obviously ideally written potentially in your customer's language. Even if you think it is, we would want to make sure that that's the case. And that's the fourth one, is making sure that we're putting it in front of the right people with the right systems to help us check it, because often we don't see things that were there. And number five is, um, if you think about this, talk into the system. Go ahead and feed into it you. Talk into it with you, and continue to note those things down so that it becomes more and has more of your voice inside of that. Because talking to it is way more, again, than worth 100 pages of copy of somebody else's if it's more just what you are. And here's what I want for you. Okay. If it looks like you're going to have a better idea today, tomorrow morning, and hopefully you're going to understand that you can have the whole thing literally rebuilt on the next day. So instead of writing something on a sticky note that sits on your computer monitor until next spring, if you have this thought, and go ahead and start taking advantage of that. It looks like, what I want to say, getting told no by your customers, that's going to be a critical thing. Your fake customers is an important part as well before you go spend 4 weeks on trying to solve something instead of after. So find that out now instead of after. And honestly, it looks like sitting down on a Friday afternoon and being done is now what this is, instead of feeling like you've got something else that's just going to stick in the back of your head all weekend. And you're just going to continue to pile other stuff onto it until you feel like you're just not going to be able to get to it. AI and part of your process will be able to simplify and bring all those things together to you in a much easier way now than you've ever thought you could do in the past. Now, if you run a business, okay, that makes and sell physical goods, everything I just walked through was in service of one thing, is helping. It was in helping me put together my system that helps businesses find the money that is already sitting inside of your company that nobody's ever helped you understand how to go grab that and claim it. So I call it's like the unclaimed money that's sitting in your business. And there's a whole other video on this as well that I'll be putting together on what this looks like. But I would encourage you to reach out to let me know if you want to work with us. Our goal is to connect with different customers that are out there in this world that know and feel. You probably have customers tell you that you have amazing goods and amazing things. And what you're finding is that you should be having stacks of customers at your door. Our goal is to help you find ways of taking some of that existing visibility that you have, putting and combining the things that you've already got inside of your business, and helping you get more money out of those exact same things that you want, so you could pay for all the other things that you're wanting to do with your company. You can pay for more ads if you need to. You can pay for more inventory. You can pay for your next product design. You can pay for your molding. You can pay for the next employee to help pull some things off your plate. At the end of the day, you're going to have more money in your bank, and that more money you can use for the things you want to do personally with you and your family, yourself as well. It might be a family vacation. The goal is to just make things easier, lighter, and put these systems in place that help you extract the money that you've already put time and effort behind in order to bring that together. If any of this was useful, tell me which one of the five that you think you're going to be doing tomorrow. I'll go ahead and take a look at that. So put a comment in there, and I'll go ahead and see you on the next one. Thanks everybody for your time.